Thanks for joining us. This is our extended interview with Stanley Tate, founder and student loan attorney at his firm, Tate Law. The first part of this video is from our GNGF Live, which happens every other Wednesday over on our Facebook page. The second part here, in this bonus extended interview, we dive into how Stanley is driving eyeballs to his website. If you already saw the live, I'll put the timestamp to the exclusive extended interview below. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can follow along with our great conversations on legal marketing and the business side of running a law firm. Welcome to GNGF Live, your bi-weekly Ask the Experts about all things law firm marketing and business growth. I'm Mark Homer, author of Online Law Practice Strategies and the founder of Get Noticed, Get Found. On this show, we focus on the business side of growing and running your law firm, so I am really excited to have today's guest, Stanley Tate. He founded his firm, Tate Law, where he focuses on student loans, and he's built his brand around being unabashedly himself. On his site, he even says, you should hire me if you want to work with someone that knows what they're doing and won't blow smoke up your ass about what your options are. So today we'll talk all about defining your authentic self as an attorney and how to attract the right clients. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to our page, not just a video, so you can get updated when our next episode goes live. And of course, it never hurts for you to show just a little love and hit that like button on the video too. It really does help us a lot. We've got moderators in the chat, so please ask questions and interact during the premiere. And if you're watching this in the future after the premiere, we do monitor comments and we'll reach out to the guests and answer any follow-up questions you have. That's because we love you all and we love getting to meet you online and now in person. You can find a list of our upcoming webinars, CLEs, and all of our other events where we're going to be speaking on our website at gnGF.com/events. We have an extensive library of videos, including extended interviews, as well as our in-depth GNGF tips series where we dive into topics like, is SEO dead? And so much more over on our YouTube channel. You can watch those videos, well, after the interview, of course, at the link we'll drop in the chat. All right, let's get to the interview. Stanley Tate, thanks for joining me today.
All right, thanks, Mark. Thank you for having me.
So, we've gotten to chat a few times, but for the audience, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Stanley Tate. More, I guess, ready to your audience. I'm a lawyer. I help people with student loans, and I've been doing this since 2014. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. Bears, Cubs fan. Sean Dunston was my favorite baseball player. Military veteran, and all type of other cool stuff.
Yeah, and by the way, for those that don't know, to say South Side of Chicago and Cubs fan, it's kind of, that's risky. So,
it is risky, but I fell in love with the lovable losers. Obviously, they always had more fun in the stands at Wrigley Field. Also, Sean Dunston and Mark Grace, who comes up. Yeah, Gracie comes up later in my life because I think about. He's a Hall of Famer that doesn't hit any home runs as a first baseman. He's all about singles and doubles, but you can scratch out a great career concentrating on small wins.
Yeah, singles win World Series, right? All right, so how did you actually get in the niche of student loans, right? That's what you work on. That's what everything's about.
So there was I was ending a federal clerkship. I was working in bankruptcy court, and I was thinking about what I wanted to do next. And a lawyer, one of the consumer bankruptcy lawyers, he was like, hey, we really need someone that knows student loans. And I was like, how the hell do you make money at this shit? Like, is it even a thing? But slowly but surely I got into it, dealing with my own loans. And then I was able to help a couple friends kind of figure it out. And I realized it was a very complex issue that there were few people addressing. And I thought it was a way for me to be able to distinguish myself inside of a marketplace, because I thought I was going to be like, oh, I'm going to be this great consumer bankruptcy lawyer. And he realized, bro, trying to scratch out an existence doing chapter 7s and 13s is hard as hell, because everyone is doing it and they're doing it the same way. There's no way to distinguish yourself because you're all selling cola products.
Yeah. And so, thinking, first of all, the fact that you came in and said, I want to think about a niche that I can separate myself and be unique. It kind of brings me to the next question. I think that you, more than almost anybody I see online, and there's a few that I think do it really well, but you are just somebody I use it as an example all the time, right? You're very upfront about, anybody who hits your website or meets you or whatever, here's what you're getting. And if you like that, I'm for you. And if you don't like that, then probably don't call, right? I mean, you're very you put yourself out there. And I think lawyers are really nervous to do this. When did you figure out that that was a good thing for your brand?
Trial and error, because like, and I don't know the exact moment. No, I do remember when it shifted, when I was like, I'm gonna record this video. I got an email from someone that were like, dude, you don't have to be an asshole. And I'm like, I'm not even being an asshole. We have a limited time. So I'm using a free consultation for 10 minutes as a lead gen proposition. I only have so much time to listen to you, so it has to move quickly, which means I have to take over the wheel, which means I'm going to be aggressive in how I ask you questions. And by aggressive, I'm going to cut you off and do these things. And I didn't like that someone had a false expectation of it. So I said, you know what? Let me just be clear. This is how it's going to go. And if it works for you, it doesn't. And it's kind of like this idea that, you don't have to be for everyone. You can be for a very specific person so long as there's enough volume there and enough value turnover that you'll be okay. And so I tried it and want to explain myself, and it's been working great for me.
Yeah, and it's something that we talk about. It's like if you can be the perfect fit for an audience, it's way better than trying to hit all the audience and just kind of being so-so.
Yeah, dude, my general advice when I talk to lawyers is like, and this comes down to like how they choose their services. I'm like, dude, it's hard as shit to be Cheesecake Factory, right? Like Cheesecake Factory does a good job at pretty much everything, and it's all these dishes. You can't do that as yourself. You have to choose one because it's just one of you. So how do you do that in the way that you choose your services, and how do you present yourself? Just be you and let the chips fall where they may.
So, I mean, again, you put yourself out there. People should definitely check out your website and just, hey, man, no BS. Here's what you're going to get and that kind of stuff, right? Have there been any drawbacks, though? I'm always curious because, people are like worried about the risks and stuff. And I think people should put themselves out there like that and really focus on their ideal client. I mean, they have to be, again, not map what you do, but be themselves. Have you had any issues or drawbacks that you see, or maybe disadvantages for people?
No, honestly, it's been pretty cool because, I still get some people now, very rarely, where they're like, dude, you were mean, and they'll post a Google review. And then what's crazy is other people would chime in and be like, he told you who he was before you signed up for the call. What do you expect? And so there hasn't been any drawbacks I could think of. It's been all pluses, right? And that's bled over into how I write my newsletter. The facts that I started sharing little details about myself, that I love cocktails, I love bourbon, I love whiskey. People chime in on that, and it allows you to connect and be human. And what people are really searching for in this environment that's on the internet that you can't tell what's real or not, they're looking for traits of authenticity. And so if you just show up as yourself, people can feel that, they can smell it, they know it when they see it, and they're like, I want to go with this guy.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because if you were in a networking setting in your town, you go up to whatever, the charity event, the local bar networking event, or these different chamber events, and a lawyer's in there, they're not walking up and being like, hey, check out my blog, I'm an expert at this and that. They're talking about the sports, the weather, the cocktail, the new brew pub that opened, right? You're yourself there, but we get online and think we have to have a different persona.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that comes down to, and I missed this point earlier, but it's this idea of what value do you bring to the equation, right? If you're confident in what the value is you deliver, then you should be more comfortable in being yourself, because you are the person with the knowledge, and this other person needs it from you. And I think we flip it in our minds where we have this hunger where we need these clients. And of course we need these clients to come in because we need money to operate and do our things. But I think there's a way to be yourself and know that you are the value bringer to the relationship. And if you let people know who you are, they can self-identify and say, this person is a part of my tribe, or this person resembles something that I like in myself, and then they'll go for you. I can't tell you how many people reach out to me and they're like, dude, thank you. I reached out to you because of your no BS attitude with things, and that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and there could be people out there that's not what they're looking for, and
right.
You didn't have to deal with talking to them either.
Yeah, dude, like I may not be for you. If you want a formal conversation with a suit and tie and blaze, whatever, then yeah, sure, go get that guy. But I'm not him and I have no desire to be him. And so we might as well not even go down this path together if that's your expectation.
Yeah, and I think it's important that it's again, I like the term authentic self, right? Really understanding who you are and how that matches to the clients you work with, and putting all those pieces together. I mean, you've put thought into this, which I love. I mean, to the point where you even said it, well, hey, here's actually the practice area I'm kind of going to focus on. So you've put a lot of thought into this. But there are, people I've seen, and we've come across it, in being in marketing, where someone will call and say, okay, here's these 3 websites. I want my website to look just like these things, and then we're like, okay, so let's, and we start talking, get to know them, and you look around their pictures of their office. They literally have like stacks of paperwork and files and books, but they wanted the website to show them like they're in a corporate tower, with all the beautiful windows and everything's perfect and pristine. I'm like the person who's going to be attracted to that is going to come and hate the services that are going to get delivered here. But there is probably somebody who's perfect for you, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think you just have to be okay with that. Now, but then there's value in modeling the thing that you actually want to be. If you want to attract like that type of client, then be it. I think about like the TV show Mr. Robot, and they had like this detective on there in the later seasons, and he walked around with a coffee mug, right, and glasses, and he was like, he'll tell this story about how he's a father and this and that, but then come to find out it's not a father. He doesn't even drink coffee. He puts liquor inside of it, but he does it because it disarms people, and in pattern recognitions they say, oh, this is someone I can connect with. And so to a certain extent, it's not to say that you have to be false inside of it, but you have to recognize if you're attracting those things, then if that's what you want to attract, then you need to pattern yourself inside it so it looks like the thing you're trying to go get.
Yeah, and again, I think that there is a fine line there, right?
It is.
Yeah,
it is. I'm not suggesting that you BS anyone, but understand that if that's what you want, then there has to be certain things they're looking for. Like, I can't be a Supreme Court justice. I didn't go to Harvard, right? Like, it's not going to happen for me. I went to Howard University. It may happen, Thurgood Marshall, but the likelihood of success is going to be low because I don't have that background. I don't have those markers that they're looking for that particular thing. And so understand what it is you're trying to attract and say, okay, I need to make sure I highlight these things inside of myself, and then I also do other things that are pattern matching.
So like in the beginning, like I'd love to kind of talk about like where you started with your marketing and stuff. But one thing I know you do now a lot, which I think helps with that connectivity, is you've incorporated a lot of video. So, like, feel free to like jump back and kind of say, here's kind of where I started and stuff. But I would like at some point to also talk about the fact that, you go to your website. I mean, you've got that frequently asked questions turned down into like a choose your own adventure video series, which I think is awesome. And I've gone through there just to kind of like watch and learn some of these things. I'm like, I don't have an issue with the student loans, but man, this is really cool. But like, so how does your marketing maybe evolved as you've learned and figured that, who your audience is?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to, I was story time. I was in a club in New Orleans and I was in there by myself. I didn't know anyone in there, right? There's other people in there, but I didn't know any of the other patrons. And I felt alone, and there was a little bit of like just shyness to me inside this moment. And I'm not a shy person at all, but inside of that moment where I don't know anyone, it felt that way. Until the bartender reached out to me and was like, hey, big guy, what you want? And then we started talking, and then I warmed up. And so I thought about that from the process of like, on the internet, people are walking into this space cold. They don't know anything. And so the question becomes, how do you reach through the screen and then connect with them in a way where they're like, okay, they learn things about you. And the word can only do so much. So I was like, no, we have to find a way to do video. And slowly but surely, I iterated through some things and I found Video Ask. And I was like, yo, this would actually be pretty dope because one, it lets the person get used to who I am, my voice, how I communicate. And it forms a relationship that you just can't form the same way with photos and with words on a piece of paper. They get to see your mannerisms, right? And they get to see, oh, this is someone I want to hang out with or I want to work with, whatever. Like it all works the same because at the end of the day, the type of business model I have, someone is buying me more so than they're buying a result. They can get the result from somewhere else potentially, but they want to work with me. And I try to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people hire people more than they hire businesses, right? We're not big brands, right? They're not hiring the perception of Nike or whatever. Like it's professional services. They're hiring people. And as an aside, like Video Ask, great product. Definitely check it out. We're not affiliated to anything, but I definitely want to put a link down there because you have done really cool stuff with Video Ask, and I think people should check out your site and see how you're using it. Because one thing, and we've talked about this, Video Ask allows like a two-way communication, but you've used it more in terms of I used the word choose your own adventure. I think that's how we talked about it before. But you purposely didn't really put in the response back because you're like, well, that's not what people are looking for at this point.
Yeah, well, more so it was a volume problem. Like, I get way too many people that visit my site to be able to respond back to each of those solicitations in a timely manner, right? It's impossible without a team. And I'm a team of one up until recently. So it couldn't work for me like that. So let's just use it as another call to action driver and give valuable information. And that call to action may be driving them to more helpful information, or it may be the schedule for the consultation and get them in the funnel from that standpoint.
So the video we talked about, like what other kind of marketing techniques have you done that you think that have helped connect? You mentioned your newsletter. Maybe you could talk a little bit more of that, like that have helped build that connection of they're hiring me. They're kind of part of this community of who I am and the people we've worked with. Tell me more about that.
So YouTube has been big for me as well. It's crazy. I have people that sometimes like they freak out when we get on the phone. They're like, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity," right? Because they've watched all the videos because they're building a relationship with you that you don't even recognize is happening, but they're watching all your videos. So for me, I realized, like looking at the landscape, that there wasn't someone that was me talking about student loans. It was a bunch of like small white dudes. I say small white Jewish dudes. I'm cool with them all. But I was like, bro, y'all are the ones dominating the space. There's no one like me. So let me just show up and be me and be cool with it and see how it goes. And so I started doing videos and they were shitty. But I just kept doing them, and sooner or later you just get comfortable like talking into the camera and just having a conversation. And I wanted to make sure that I just hop on there, I answer the question asked right away, get right to it, and just let it be. I didn't have a bunch of call to action drivers. There was something in the YouTube description box for them to click on, but like I just felt it was a way to connect with people for them to see me. And then by the time we get on the phone, there's nothing to even sell. Like they've already been sold. They're ready to work with you. And that's a beautiful thing because like we're talking high dollar items and services here, right? And so to get someone to just be able to like write over a check to you for a couple commas is crazy.
So I'm glad you mentioned one thing there of, hey, the stuff I started off, I had some crappy videos on YouTube, whatever, right? Because it's important to understand, like, people are going to go check out your website now and maybe, some of your videos and stuff, and they'll be like, man, that's a big bar to, like, get to, right? But those crappy videos back in the day still did the job, right? I mean, it's still people connected, people called, whatever. You've gotten better, but, like, it doesn't have to be the perfect production from day one.
No, not at all, bro. I tell people just get started because, like, everything you do is going to be shit when you start, and that's okay, but you have to start. And it's that imposter, this syndrome of like, you're looking at someone who has reps, right? And you don't have those reps, and that's okay. Like I look at YouTubers like Marquez Brownlee, right? Like this dude is like, his videos are crazy, shooting with the Ari Alexa, doing all type of cool stuff. But you look at his original videos, they were terrible, but they had value inside of it, so people connected with them, and they go from there. And you'll iterate through. The website I have today is not what I had before. This is like the 4th version, and we're getting ready to release the 5th version. And that's okay. Like, you want to keep working. And that's a cool thing too. I mean to tell people this about like websites. A lot of lawyers, they like, oh, I want a website. But I'm like, bro, you're not doing shit with it. It's just a glorified business card. You have to, if you really want to have a website that drives traffic, you have to reinvest in it. You have to treat it like an employee, which means you need to pay it a salary every year. which means you may need to set aside $20,000-$30,000 for content marketing each year and invest in your website and your content and go from there. If you truly are going to have a website that does something for you. If not, just have a glorified business card and be okay with that.
And as a digital marketing agency, we did not pay you to say that. But I mean, you're right. I mean, I don't even think I've even described it that way before. So I'm going to totally steal that in the future. So thank you. In fact, we'll just take this soundbite and put it up there, whatever everybody asks. But yeah, I mean, we're like, hey, it's not, a website is not a static medium, right? It's growing. And if you, again, like we joked about going to a networking event, right? I mean, you buy different clothes. You don't show up in the same suit every single day, right? I mean, it's your website's got to adjust. It's got to be added to. Competition's changing. How are you adapting with that? Technology's changing. Even like you said, you're on your fifth. You just released an iteration not long ago, and you're about to release a new one. I mean, I remember your last one when it came out.
Yeah, so I did one last year, like early in the last year, and the team that did it did a great job. But the issue I was bumping into is that as the type of content we were creating changed, it made sense to change platforms because I was building on, we built it on Webflow. Beautiful product, works great. But there are some functionalities that we needed from a calculator standpoint or certain being able to have plugins that drive these signups and things like that. They don't work the same way in Webflow without these huge added cost and other things. So like for me, it made sense. If we're going to redo this thing, then let's redo it all the way from a design perspective and let's go ahead and blow it out. And that was cool. But like, I want to get back to how we do the budget. It's not just about tweaking the website itself, but it's also the type, having money for the content that you're creating as well. You may need to pay a couple thousand for an infographic and go from there if it's going to be really well designed. Like you can do a lot of these things on Fiverr, sure, but then it ends up looking like some shit off of Fiverr and there's nothing unique about it. And so if you're going to do something, you might as well try to be the purple cow of the thing instead of just being like every other cow around you, right? That's SF Golden. It's like, do something that stands out. I can't tell you a time in my life where I've done something where I went for the remarkable and have been disappointed. When I've tried to do the generic thing, there's a huge chance that I'm going to be disappointed with it.
Awesome. Well, we are running out of time here on the Facebook portion, but we are just now, I think, getting into the questions like I wanted to get into about, it's one thing to be your ideal self, but yet you generate and drive a lot of traffic to your website, to your firm. I wanted to get into some of that. Like, like how are we taking all this content and website and video and stuff and getting eyeballs to you so that you are too busy to reply to video asks, right? So if you'll stick with me, I want to get to that and we'll put it on the extended portion. But yeah, we got to wrap up the Facebook here.
Dude, I love to hang around, man. I appreciate it. I enjoy these conversations, man. I can talk this stuff all day. Awesome.
Okay. So, but before we go, how can people find you and connect with you online?
Easiest way is go to tateesq.com, TATEESQ.com, or you can just hop in there, Stanley Tate Student Loan Lawyer, and the Google results take care of it from there.
Awesome. Yeah, and definitely check out the website and walk through some of the stuff we've talked about. You'll see that right away. So.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited for the next generation that's about to come out right now, the next iteration.
Awesome. Okay, well, stick with me, Stanley. I'll be right back. Stanley, thanks for sticking with me.
Yeah, no worries, man. I'm happy to be here, bro.
So one thing I forgot to mention to during the Facebook Live portion is, like you're not a client of GNGF, but it's just a mutual respect. I love what you're doing, and like we've been on similar webinar series and stuff where in conferences, and I've just always loved the way you approach and talk about it. Is the same way we're talking about it, but you're talking about it from somebody who's doing it as a lawyer. So I just want to let people know, like it's. We're not having you come on as a client and brag about us. So, thanks for taking the time.
Dude, I love talking this type of stuff to people that actually know what the hell they're doing. So I appreciate you.
Thanks. Well, and let's dive into that other piece, right? So, I think it's critical: branding, target client, know who you are, authenticity, getting that out there. I think that's such a foundation. But you've figured out how to take that and then do all the things necessary to drive the eyeballs. I mean, you mentioned I get so much traffic to the website, I can't really do a two-way video ask because we wouldn't have the ability to watch all the videos and reply to them, right? So what are some of the key things, or maybe marketing tactics, or what was your maybe step back and even go, here's my general marketing strategy for how I'm going to drive people to this website? Because you're not out hustling and knocking on doors, right? I mean, you're letting people come to you.
Yeah, no. All right, so I built a website, and then I wrote a couple articles, and then if I build it, they will come. And no one showed the fuck up. Like, I was just waiting on the phone to ring. And then I was like, wait, I have to do this content better. And so I slowly started like iterating through writing content. And you write like these terrible blog posts that you're writing from a lawyer, the voice of a lawyer. You don't really understand how to write and communicate, but you think you're doing the right thing. Student loan default, blah, blah, blah. But then you don't recognize there's actually a whole strategy that goes into this. And so what changed for me is I really started to pay attention to, okay, I need to learn this stuff, because I had all these marketers calling me, promising me page one this, page one that. And I'm like, bro, you wouldn't be calling me if you were actually delivering results on a consistent basis for people. So like, no, you're bullshit. Let me get past you. And then I started researching more, and I bumped into this group called Traffic Think Tank. And it was like these SEO marketers all working together. And I was able to like enroll in there. I paid like $90 a month or something. And I just learned from watching how they did things. And I realized the importance of actually understanding keyword research, understanding having a content calendar, understanding how to what are the verticals inside of the services you offer and how to tackle those. But this wasn't like a 1 year process, right? Like, I'm still learning today, and I've been at it for 8 years, 7 years now, going on 8, where I'm still like figuring this out and like, okay, how do we do this? How do we do that? So there isn't like one way to do it. You just need to like find a trusted source and kind of keep doing, keep iterating, keep going from there.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the keyword research, right? I mean, I think that you mentioned you're not just saying, here's what I called as a lawyer, and let me give my lawyer answer that I would want another lawyer to be proud to read. You're saying, let me see what people are actually asking that have this problem, and how do you normally talk to them? Let's give them an answer, right? It's
yeah, dude. You'll be amazed at how people actually describe the thing, which the answers all end up being roughly the same, but how they go about getting on that journey to get to Mecca is entirely different. And so you could try to like BS your way through it by like using Google search and kind of put in things, but you're limited based on the information you're feeding Google. You'll never really fully understand because it's driving off of you. So to have like take a step back and actually, it was really important for me to like pay someone to do keyword research and kind of like also train me on it. And I was like, oh, okay, I see how this goes now. And you can see all the variations of the thing that occasionally goes to like the same main article, but then also you may need to actually break off and create a separate article for that particular thing being described that way. Talking about the same thing, but talking about it a little bit differently.
Yeah, and one thing to be very clear is that for people listening, like, we're not talking like he said, oh, college loan lawyer. Like, people aren't searching for college loan. Well, I mean, somebody is, but like not many people are. They're searching for a problem they have. They don't even know what lawyers are involved.
Yeah, dude, that's what changed for me, right? Like, student loan lawyer, blah, blah, blah. No, what I realized is that I had some clients who they would have a garnishment come out the blue for a student loan. And the first thing they would do is be like, who the hell is this company garnishing my check? So I was like, shit, I'm going to write an article about who that company is and what it is they do, right? And how they ended up on your paycheck. Boom, took off. And what was cool about that too is you actually get to link on to this other brand's name and then use their ranking to kind of work for you like that. So it was a really great strategy for me. And so I started looking at that and how do we repeat this across the board? How do we look at the problems someone has? How do we answer those instead of saying who I am from a noun perspective, a lawyer, right? No, let's talk about problems.
Exactly. And I think that the interesting thing that I mentioned to lawyers all the time is lawyers are actually really good at solving problems. Like when somebody comes in with the problem and sits across from them or gets on the phone or gets on Zoom, like the empathy's there, the way they get through it, the process, you explain that all the time. It's just stepping back to kind of say, well, I need to define the problem that everybody has. And lawyers are great at solving problems and having that empathy, solving it in a way that matches their brand naturally. It's just figuring some of those, what are the questions people are asking? And it's usually not what you start with.
It definitely isn't. And I think that's kind of like the shift that I try to share like with my colleagues is that A, you do have to look at yourself as a problem solver. And then B, you have to look at yourself as a business owner, not as a lawyer. A lawyer, that's like a small part of the job, especially if you're like a solo or a small. The biggest part of your job is getting asses in seats. Like you need to get clients in the door. And being a lawyer doesn't really do that. The fact that you can solve their problem does that, which means you need to put yourself in a position where you are the guy that has answers to these problems.
Right. And so let's kind of keep going down that path. So putting yourself in the position where you're the person who has answers. For you, I know, and we geeked out at the tech show on SEO and like, just tracking metas. I don't even want to go to some of the words we were using. We would confuse the audience, but like we were talking about SEO. And so generating traffic from people who are just searching the internet for a problem is a big part of your strategy, right? So you've done a lot around SEO. So content's there, but like what are some, like you've had to actually go and learn, like you were asking some really technical questions, but you had to go and learn like, it's not just putting the content on there. I had to put it on a certain way, and maybe I can structure this way, and then keep track of like how that's ranking versus. And I thought it was interesting because, and we'll talk about this maybe in a little bit, but you're not competing against other lawyers often. You were competing against like NerdWallet, right?
Yeah, but that was a shift for me as well because at first I was looking for apples to apples comparison, student loan lawyer, and then I realized after we built up enough traffic, the market that we're trying to capture as a lawyer is quite smaller than the overall like vertical of information that's out there. And so it got to the point where I realized like I'm no longer like I don't have a lawyer's blog, right? Like I have a niche personal finance site that focuses on student loans. And so my direct competitors are really NerdWallet, Investopedia, Bankrate, and how inside of their small portion of their vertical, because they do 18 million visitors and I do like 100,000 a month. So like not the same, but if we break down the actual like student loan portion of that, that's who I compete with is inside of there. And that's an interesting shift. And it comes down to thinking about what am I actually trying to do? And I'm trying to solve problems. And that's the same thing that these content creation agencies are doing. And the cool thing about that is once you realize that's actually who your real competitor is, then you get to kind of like look at what they've already done and kind of repeat those behaviors. And from a UX perspective, from how they're going about designing the content, how they're going about structuring the answers, how to structure, backlinks, how are they doing anchors, right? So there's all these cool things that come from just imagining yourself differently.
Yeah, and by the way, there's some nice little cheats in there for people. Like sometimes who you're competing with on the answer to the question is horrible at delivering it, but they're just the only person delivering right now. And I'll give one example is in criminal, a lot of people, like you get a ticket or you get, like cited for something, you don't really know what that is. And people take that citation and go search for those numbers and those words. Well, the only place that has that right now is a government website often. And they're horrible at presenting.
Or like Cornell, like law.cornell, and it's just a statute and there's no context of anything.
And so you can, bring the context to your local town, your city, your practice area, but you answer the question and you answer, like it's easy to beat the government's website, believe it or not. But that's the one defining it. So that's a shift of, I'm not competing against the other lawyers doing criminal. I just need to be better than that government website because there's a lot of people searching on that. That's just, one example of thinking a little different for maybe even like a local law firm.
Right, but that starts from changing who your competitor is, right? It can't be, well, Bob does this, right? No, Bob doesn't matter, right? Like, yes, Bob matters from like a PPC perspective and all these other things, but from like a content, there are very few lawyers that spend time creating great content. And great content doesn't look like other lawyers' content. It looks like these other places that have taken time out to say, how do we deliver this information?
Yeah, and let's recognize that most people coming to find a lawyer, we talked about, right? Like this is the first time they've maybe ever really had to find a lawyer. And maybe, again, we talked earlier, they didn't even realize they needed a lawyer. They just happened to end up on your site. So it's not like they're comparing you against other lawyers. They're not going to all these lawyer sites and saying your lawyer site's better. They're saying, this information is better than that, random article that somebody else wrote.
Yeah. Dude, I have like, there may be less than 5% of my people actually come on there looking specifically for a lawyer and have looked at other lawyer websites. The vast majority, they've looked at other sites, and I've done a better job of answering that question. Or the unique thing is these other larger finance sites, they're faceless. So what I can do as well with putting my face out there is that allows them to connect and they feel like they're talking with a person that's willing to help them.
So because you've done it, and I would argue you've done it successfully and continuing to grow, if, like what worked in the beginning, what would you kind of recommend somebody kind of thinking, all right, like I want to generate traffic from the internet and SEO and stuff. And, obviously we talk about it all the time, but like from a lawyer who had to figure this out on their own, like if somebody's getting started, where would you start?
I would start at Ahrefs, ahrefs.com. Their blog was really helpful. Their YouTube channel even more so. Just getting a feel for what's going on, especially, and you have to differentiate like what type of lawyer are you? Are you someone who what I mean is, are you someone who recruits, gets clients from a local basis, or are you someone drawing nationally? Because they're like, from a local perspective, like, dude, I would learn how to do like local Google SEO like right away. Let me optimize like my map stuff right away, get that popping. And then from there, like, okay, what is the content we need to have? And I think it's really helpful to hire someone to do a keyword research for you and put together a content calendar for you, because it's hard trying to figure all this stuff out on your own without some type of guide along the way. And having that guide, even if it's not even the best guide to start with, it at least gets you started and going down that path, and then you can tweak and improve from there.
Awesome. Yeah. And so what are some of the tools that you've used, and maybe in the beginning, and some of the tools you use now?
So the tools I used at the beginning were like all the freemium stuff. So like I was doing like the 7-day subscription to Ahrefs. I was doing like the people also ask anywhere, whatever. But like over time, what I've kind of whittled down to are very basic. I have Google Search Console. I recommend anyone install that in analytics on their site right away, or something that tracks. Google Search Console is great. Console is great because it's going to let you know how do people arrive on your site. And if you look at it, you're going to find some opportunities where your site is ranking in the 50s for something. That means you're not really answering that question the way. So maybe it needs to create a different article. So Google Search Console. I use Ahrefs to do my research on stuff. I also use another tool called SERPstat, SERPstat. That tool is basically like Ahrefs, but it does a better job at identifying content clusters from there. And then for content creation, I use ClearScope to help tell me, okay, here's what your site, here's what the blog post, the words, semantic language, things like that you should have in there. And then finally, I use Jarvis.
I was just going to ask if you did
Jasper.
Content AI, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I use Jasper. They switched their name.
Yeah, they did switch.
Not to generate the whole blog post, but okay, let's say someone has wrote about this elsewhere. How would I rephrase that, or get me started on closing out this blog post with a conclusion paragraph? So that's really helpful, and I tweak it from there. I don't ever use it just to do all out content creation, though. It's more like supplementing and be like, all right, cool, that works.
Yeah, and we're down with the content AI has come a long way, but it's similar. It's let me generate some stuff, because what it's doing is looking out. Here's what everybody's kind of saying, so here's kind of like that, and it's like, well, how do I say that better? How do I say it different? How do I say that for my audience, right? And that, but it's always easier to start with some words on a page and edit them than it is to start with a blank piece of paper, right? It's just
definitely. And I would tell you that anytime you're creating content, like, I think it's important that you actually go look at the search results and go click on what's ranking and seeing how they're structuring things, what do their headings look like, and it gives you like a great roadmap. Someone has already done the work for you. You just need to do it better. It's kind of like how Apple does, right? Like, Apple wasn't the first to the market with like a portable player, right? But then they show up with the iPod, game over, right? So you don't have to be first, and sometimes it's better not to be first, because then you get to build upon someone else's work.
Yeah, and that, by the way, like, search is a lot of that, right? It's not trying to be the first article that Google learns about this keyword. see, figuring out that matters for my audience. Let me see what's ranking, and you do have to write something better, and obviously backlinks play an effort. I don't want to confuse people with too many things on backlinks, but I will ask, what are some basic things you've done for backlinks? In terms of writing articles on other sites, or what have you done anything there?
How do you do that as a lawyer to generate backlinks? No one wants to do backlink to a lawyer's blog. It's the worst. So you can do Haro, right? And you can hire someone to do the Haro outreach for you. But the issue that I saw is that a lot of links that I was getting weren't related to my domain authority, like what it is we did, right? What we talked about. It would be like ERISA. I don't deal shit with ERISA, but that's the link they can get me, and it helped a little bit. But as far as blogs go, I didn't do any guest posting or anything like that. I slowly just worked and grinded, and then I would get something from NerdWallet reach out to me. They want to write about me, or Wall Street Journal reach out to me because they saw me on the internet, and I would get little stuff like that. And usually those are do not follows, so you're not getting much from that. But what I've learned is to a certain extent, backlinks, they're not irrelevant because they matter for really competitive keywords. But if we're talking about stuff that has a difficulty of less than 40, then it's really about who produces the best content for that piece. And that's where ClearScope comes into play. That's where looking at the SERPs and seeing how they're delivering the information really matters.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I've been kind of arguing the same thing for a while, and especially I think so for your national, I think that there's some competitiveness there that's probably slightly greater, but for a lot of local law firms, if you're a local law firm, having just good content and then links that are from things around you, right? So if you sponsor something that is relevant in your town, Google's going to be like, okay, that's a decent law firm in that town because they got a link from the paper that hosted the event, right? It's not it's take things you're already doing and just ask for a connection to your website, which isn't a bad thing to do anyways. That's often enough to make a difference in back. So it's been interesting in legal that, and I've got a few friendly agency competitors out there, and we'll have debates around this. And we've been able to prove that content, good quality content, can go really far in overcoming a lot of problems.
Dude, I think it does a tremendous job. And from a local perspective, because I am national, but there are some local things I try to do. So I can't compete because my office is in Missouri. So if someone Googles student loan lawyer and they're in Maryland, I'm not going to rank for that thing because I'm not in the Google snack pack, right? I'm not popping up in the maps. But what if I write an article that's looking for student loan lawyer in Maryland? Boom, boom, boom. And here are the top people you should work with. And I may mention myself there and just spell out, hey, I don't have an office here, but I can help you with these issues. And so basically you're trying to do what Yelp and what these other aggregate sites are already doing. You're just doing it better. And so you have a chance to compete for these other smaller terms in these other places that drive a small but not inconsequential amount of leads per month that convert.
Yeah, we just we're working on a case study right now of that exact example, but that's definitely more of an advanced tactic. There's a lot of foundational things before you start leveraging.
Dude, I don't know what's
stuff.
Advanced or not. I just do stuff
there you go.
And go from there.
But yeah, I'm not telling somebody to go be like Yelp in their first round out, focusing on content generation. So,
yeah. Well, sorry about that. Like I said, I don't know. I just I'm constantly iterating and looking, okay, how can we do these better? How can we do these things better?
That's awesome. But again, and to be fair, you've been doing this for, many, many years. You said 7-8 years. So, year 1, year 2 for somebody is going to look a lot different than your year 7 and 8.
Yeah, definitely. If I was just starting off, honestly, I would just bang out, give me the content counter. Let's bang out these core pieces we know we need to have and go from there, because you're going to learn so much just from generating. I tell people, if all you do is 2 blog posts a month, that's 24 pieces in a year. You'll be nice. That's going to be more than thousands of lawyers have, because I can't tell you how many of my colleague sites I go on, they have 5 pages, and I'm like, what's the point of this? It does nothing for you, right? But they're like, oh, look at my website, and it makes you feel good. but what is it actually doing for you?
Yeah, right, exactly. So on that, I think that's a great place to end it here, because, let's think about it. Like, what is it doing for you? Like, where's your investment going? Love it. Stanley, I really appreciate you spending the time. I mean, we went, as long on our extended part here, I think is our first half of the interview. So people are going to get a lot of great content from this. Really appreciate you sticking with me.
Dude, I appreciate you having me. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Hey, what's up? I'm Josh. Thanks so much for joining us. If you feel like you learned something today, think of how beneficial it would be to chat with myself or another one of our marketing consultants one-on-one. Go ahead and visit our website to schedule your free consultation. It only takes a minute.